The case for emerging markets. All right, so Alan Roth has written this article, which I've yet to read, but I like Alan, and when Alan writes, I want to read it. So let's see what he says. Dateline February 15th, 2021. And there's old Alan. So I'm interested to hear his case for emerging markets because I have no international ones right now. So I might be missing something. Let's see what old Alan says. With U.S. equity valuations very rich by historical standards, many, including Jeremy Grantham, Rob Barnett, and Vanguard, are predicting emerging markets to excel. I'll examine this case and give my thoughts on how to invest in emerging markets. Grantham's GMO is predicting emerging market value stocks outpace inflation by 5.6 annually over the next 7 years. This is a stark contrast to U.S. large caps lagging inflation by 6% annually and small caps lagging by an even greater 7.8% annually. And there's no safety in bonds, also lagging inflation dramatically. So here's the Grantham stuff. Grantham's been, I can't stand the guy. He's a big lib, big climate change climista. And yet I guarantee when Jeremy Grantham flies, he flies first class in his private jet. Anyway, look, if you're going to say, oh my goodness, we're all going to die from CO2, well, you better not fly. That's all there is to it. And if you're flying in your private jet, you can kiss my big fat behind. Morningstar's Christine Benz summarized experts' long-term forecasts using real inflation-adjusted returns. All right, so BlackRock, here are all the dates from the last just a few months ago. Real adjusted returns. So equities, negative. Morningstar Investment Management says U.S. equities forecast for what 10 to 15 year time horizon that U.S. equities will return negative, negative inflation. U.S. equities. I mean, think about that. Let's see. We've never had a 15-year time frame where U.S. equities return negative net of inflation, 66 to 72, 66 to 82. Let's take a look. I don't think even that was negative. Let's take a look. Hold on. Please, we go to political calculations, the S&P 500 at your fingertips. This says December 2006, they updated. So if you go to political calculations, you just click on the main link here, political calculations, and you'll see where it says S&P at your fingertips. By far and away the most popular post. I hope they're making money off this. They got any ads on here? I hope they do, because this is a great resource, man. I just hope they're making money. They don't even have a donate thing on here. No. All right, so let's go to we're gonna go to 1966 to 1982, which was the inflationary time, and 66 is right there. All right, 66 right there, and we're gonna end at 1982. All right, and we'll end at the end of 82. Come here, Finnegan. 1982, right there. All right, so let's see what we got. We're going to calculate. So the S&P 500 with dividend reinvested was 6.61% return with, okay, so the S&P 500 had negative return, there you go. So it was negative 0.23 with dividends fully invested net of inflation. All right, well, there you go. So we did have and that's 14, 15, 16 years. All right, well, there we go. So I was proven wrong. We shall see. But again, the point was that inflation was through the roof back then. The investments were not. And I don't think inflation is going through the roof, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so either way, research affiliates, which is usually a pretty big bear, they're saying a 2% net of inflation. Vanguard's saying 3.5 to 5, basically 4.5 roughly. All right. So, but emerging markets, they're all saying 6, 7, 4.5, 7, 8, and 8. Interesting. Research and affiliates and Vanguard agree with Grantham on emerging markets and predict real returns between 4.5% and 9% annually. That's net of inflation. Though they predict international developed markets will perform nearly as well. Yeah, look, they got developed markets. That is weird, man. Morningstar is basically saying the U.S. markets aren't going to do anything. Developed markets and emerging markets will give us almost 5%. Okay. And they're even saying bonds will give us 1% net of inflation. Oh, I don't get that at all. All right, come here, big boy. All right, so based on these expert forecasts, there's a strong case for at least overweighting emerging markets. and emerging markets value in particular. All right, let's examine the track record of these experts. Before placing credibility on, if you wonder what I'm looking at, I'm just looking at my dog. Chloe's got Pablo up in her room because she's working from home today, and there's Finney by himself, and he's getting lots of stuff, and that's why we love him, because he's a nut. Let's see. Let's take a step back and look at their past forecasts. I can't rule out that luck played a part in a few forecasts being accurate, but I can certainly give me pause if the track record is poor. I first went back to GMO's forecast to see how things turned out. Well, not exactly 7 years ago. My Money blog showed GMO's 7-year forecast as of July 31st, 2013. And yeah, they were just, look, I went back to 2010. I think I even have it here someplace. And it's ugly. As you can see, GMO predicted 6.8% real returns for emerging markets and 2.1% for international stocks. They also predicted a negative return for U.S. stocks, except for high quality, which GMO defines as companies with a record of high and stable profitability and low leverage. Of course, they are wildly inaccurate. Yet, I guarantee Jeremy Grantham and the boys still made bank, even though they're hugely inaccurate. With U.S. stocks nearly turning in double-digit returns, real returns, by the way, and trouncing emerging markets as shown below. So here we got U.S. stocks 9.9, but GMO forecast a negative 2.1. Vanguard's forecast has been quite inaccurate as well. And the interesting thing is I use Vanguard on my models because I like Vanguard, I'm not going to lie to you. And I always want to err on the side of caution. So Vanguard has been pretty, I wouldn't say bearish, but definitely on the low. They've been wrong on the short side, which is good. And I mean, I like that. So if we err on the caution and we're wrong and that we do better, that's just better, in my opinion. If we err on the side of optimism, we do wrong, that's not good. All right, so I like the fact that Vanguard is cautious. Let's see. For many years, Vanguard has been predicting international to significantly outperform U.S. stocks. And his economic model says he'll do the same with less risk. I don't agree with that. And the crazy thing, I was just talking to another guy the other day, man, and he was using Vanguard for their personal advisory services. And I just don't understand it. So Vanguard is using not their model returns forecast, but their historical returns and their advisory services projections. You got two. The left doesn't know what the right's doing. So Vanguard is saying we expect these low returns, but for our financial planning customers, we're going to use historical returns. That makes no sense to me at all. I actually don't like that. Market predictions, even long-term predictions, are not only worthless but dangerous. I completely agree. The human mind likes order and hates randomness. 100% right, Alan. That's why we and our clients try to predict the future, whether it's making a killing in a volatile stock like GameStop or stonk, or picking parts of the markets that will outperform. These strategies lead to overall returns. Look at me. I mean, I've been value heavy for freaking years, and I've underperformed. Yes, it could be time for emerging markets to outperform and emerging market value, which in particularly has had dismal performance. The Spider S&P dividend ETF has performed in the bottom 5th percentile for the past 5 years and bottom 1 percentile for the past year. It's an extremely value-oriented fund. Last year, emerging markets returns of 15.3 still lagged the U.S. Oh boy. I believe emerging markets stocks, but not enough to overweight them as part of the portfolio of international stocks. I prefer a total international stock index that includes emerging markets. You or your clients may not agree. The core and explore philosophy states that large cap stocks are efficient, but small cap, international, and especially emerging markets aren't. Thus, it's okay to pay a bit more for an active manager. Yeah, that's what they'll argue. I've always rejected this argument. I'll explain why in a bit. If active and passive management styles are defined in sensible ways, it must be the case that before cost, the return on average actively managed dollar will equal the return on the average passively managed dollar. That's 100%. 100%. After cost, the return on the average active managed dollar will be less than the return on the average passively managed dollar, assuming that the passively managed dollar is, and I'm talking about index fund, isn't charging active managed fees. Yes, I completely agree. These assertions hold true for any period of time. Moreover, they depend on only the laws of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Nothing else is required. You can see this playing out by looking at the Vanguard Small Cap Index Fund, which, as according to Vanguard, has performed in the top 7th percentile of its peers in the last 5 years, and the 4th percentile over 15. Adjusting for survivor bias, the performance was even stronger. That's why he indexed, man. I fully expect to see similar data for emerging markets. I was wrong. The Vanguard VWO performed in the 58th percentile over 10 and 55th over 15 years. Both were slightly below average. That data did not support my hypothesis. I looked for the Morningstar peer group benchmarks for diversified emerging market funds, and the top performing one was American Fund's New World Fund, which earned 8.22% annually over the last 10 years, which is nearly double the Vanguard VWO. It turns out the fund was only 20, but it had 20% U.S. stocks. There you go. Microsoft was largest single holding, nearly 26% international. So they're certainly not emerging markets, the Vanguard, the American Fund's New World Fund. During that same 10-year period, U.S. stocks earned 13%. So basically, at the end of the day, he's saying that it was juiced by having non-emerging markets. Does indexing work in emerging markets? Yeah, I don't care because it does. Exactly. After examining the data, Blanchett at Morningstar says indexing works everywhere. I completely agree. I don't know if emerging markets will outperform over the next 7 to 10 years, but it's unlikely it will lag the U.S. as much as it had over the past. I predict the expert predictions will be at least less wrong. The same is true for value, as it likely underperform as much as it would be unlikely for it to underperform as it has for the last 5. Completely agree. I'm always skeptical of overweighting any part of global markets. That's especially true where there's a consensus of outperformance. I 100% agree with that. And look, I don't have any international stuff, none. U.S. or bust, baby. U.S. or bust. I think you can find value stocks in the good old U.S. of A. that have underperformed, i.e. VTV. That's my biggest holding, as I said 1,000 times on Sunday. I don't think you need to go overseas to find companies that have underperformed relative to the U.S. market. So they're right here. But, diversification would say you should own international. I get it. I don't, and I probably won't. Hey, love your thoughts. We'll see you.